Today, in studio, we have Makhunga. Tell us about JPC.
So JPC is a 100% owned entity, a SOC type of an entity for the city of Johannesburg that is mandated to do property management.
How do we do business with the city of Joburg? What are those opportunities that exist within the city of Joburg? And but before we get there, you mentioned outdoor advertising. So what does that look like?
We're back, and I think we can say that the city is still driving this project to rejuvenate the inner city. We're looking at different ways of how to partner with private sector as well, and speedy this time around, because we've learned from the first batches that we took out in terms of how we can actually attract investment speedily and change the inner city.
Making sure that the communities are empowered, the city generally, we drive transformation through that.
Yeah, I think that's why also we look at organizations like SIBIB as strategic partners for us, because we've got a common goal in terms of transformation, and we seek to use the such platform so that we can reach out to the members of likes of SIBIB and so forth, but also on platforms that when we engage with different developers, we want to emphasize the issue of transformation. Element of the Orlando Kaya will be going out on tender, I think in about 2 weeks time or so from now. So where it's a mixed-use development with a bit of commercial, because we've been releasing the pockets for residential, and we wanted to make sure that in terms of the flow, we have enough residential to support the commercial element that we actually put it.
Molweni, Sanibonani, Dumelang. I am your host, Kululwa Mutwa, and this is Property Market Moves. In this platform, we talk all things property, and we aim to give you information to educate and inspire you along your property journey. Now, if you are a student studying property, or you have started your career or business in property, or you just have an interest in property, this is the platform for you. Today, in studio, we have Makhunga, who is the General Manager, Mega Projects. That sounds mega. For the City of Joburg Property Company, JPC. Welcome, Musah.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
How are you doing?
We're good. I'm good. Just busy. Trying to change the urban form of the city of Johannesburg, I guess.
Okay. That's exciting. And we will get, dive deeper into that. Yeah. So before we do that, can you tell us, who is Musah?
Oh, Musah is, where do I start? Strange. Yeah. Musah is just young. I'll always be young.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm currently working at JPC.
Yeah.
Joined JPC in 2013 through the integration, but with a background really formal education, undergrad. I'm a big home student. So somehow I migrated for the love of property when I was doing my auditing articles and stuff. I used to have clients in property, likes of Pareto, Axas, and so forth. So I grew love for the property, and after that, obviously, I just made sure I equip myself well to understand property. And I'm passionate about property.
That's the beautiful thing about property, is that it welcomes everyone from all, walks of life. So whatever your background, property can be a home, for you.
It is a home for me.
Well, I'm similar to you. I mean, I've got a legal background, but when the property bug hit, I just fell in love with it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And about JPC,
Yes.
Tell us about JPC.
So JPC is a 100% owned entity, a SOC type of an entity for the city of Johannesburg that is mandated to do property management, property development, outdoor advertising, as well as asset management on behalf of the city. So basically, we're the entity for the city that looks at property and see how to sweat the asset for the city. and attract investment and partner with third-party investments sort of around the city of Johannesburg. So we're confined partially to the city of Johannesburg. And so that's basically what we do. We've got a portfolio of about 29,000 properties, including of social. Yeah, so it's quite a huge portfolio with a book value of about 8 billion, 9 billion. And that's historic value because we keep our asset at historic value. We only value it market value when we transact on it. That's the city's policy, in a nutshell. But so we do quite a lot of exciting property developments that you'll see around. Some are known. Some people don't know that we even did them. So, but we're trying very hard now to make ourselves known that when we've touched on the project, that people know that we are involved in that project. But we have to say that most of them we do in partnership with third-party investors. So we form partnerships.
All right. So I hope you heard what he said, that there are a number of developments that have come out on the market, and we will go into that because I know that some of you are listening and you want to know, how do we do business with the city of Joburg? What are those opportunities that exist within the city of Joburg? And but before we get there, you mentioned outdoor advertising. So what does that look like? What is JPC doing in outdoor advertising?
So in outdoor advertising, we don't do the bylaw side. That is because we can't be a referent player. So the bylaws are done by our sister department, which is development planning.
Okay.
But from a contracting perspective, if you wish to have a billboard erected, which at this point in time we will not say do come, because billboards, we try to declutter. Actually, we've got a lot of billboards. Just last week we were attending a conference in Cape Town for the outdoor, where we actually met some of the industry players to see the future of outdoor in terms of where we should. And if you look at what is happening in the likes of China, the digital billboards that are there, and where we are with static billboards in South Africa. So it was quite a good exposure for us to see where the future in terms of outdoor advertising is.
Sure.
But in terms of opportunities in South Africa, as you said, here in Joburg, if you are in that media space, you will have to engage with us as JPCs to contract with us, because we're dealing with a lot of illegalities at this point in time. And I think we want to just caution anybody that don't wake up and erect a billboard, because that's illegal. However, like we do with property transaction, because we treat the land where you put a billboard as a transaction, as a piece of land. So you will have to approach us and we will take you through the process. Then you can be out there and erect a billboard.
All right.
Yeah.
And before we get into the opportunities, we know that, last year we had quite a few stories around the bad buildings, the incidents that were happening there. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, unfortunately last year we had one of the very, very bad incident happening in the inner city in one of our buildings, which is Hijacked. We do have, and I think we've been communicating extensively, that we've got a challenge of hijacked buildings. Among the city is one of the landlords, but also other private landlords will actually approach the city with such. Just I think 2 weeks ago, we're processing a transaction where a landowner is saying, look, they want to abandon their building because it's hijacked and so forth. So that just shows you the extent of the challenge that we're facing in terms of the hijacked buildings.
Sure.
But that being said, the city still continues with the inner city revitalization project that we started. It had gained momentum, and I think COVID did affect us a little bit in terms of moving there, but we're back, and I think we can say that the city is still driving this project to rejuvenate the inner city. We're looking at different ways of how to partner with private sector as well, and speedy this time around, because we've learned from the first batches that we took out in terms of how we can actually attract investment speedily and change the inner city. So as I was talking to you earlier, part of the things that we're looking at, where we've got what we call problematic or bad buildings,
Yeah.
how do we partner that with outdoor advertising, cover it and make it income generation for the city whilst we're undergoing the town planning issues and so forth. So we will be looking at certain precincts where we want to pilot certain projects,
Yeah.
mirroring the building and the outdoor advertising, and then revitalizing those areas and making sure we continue with our block to block, block by block approach, where, because for us to have an impact, you need to target a certain area, make sure that you really rejuvenate that area, then maintain it, and then go to the next block. And when I talk of a block, normally in our planning, we'll be talking about 4 or 5 city blocks, and we call it a block. So we'll block it together and say, in this area, what sort of amenities we want to be there, what do we want to drive in that area, what sort of development, do we need social housing, do we need student accommodation, and so forth. So we will have smaller precincts in terms of our planning to rejuvenate the city. It's quite it's a big task, but it's exciting.
All right. And I mean, as you talking, I'm thinking about this term, bad buildings. And I know that's an old term that, was changed over time to, the inner city revitalization. Because actually, I mean, I'm listening to myself that bad buildings, when you call something bad it actually, tends to be problematic.
Yeah.
But when it's then, you see the opportunity out of that, then you call it something different, which is what you guys already did.
Absolutely.
Okay, now if we come to the opportunity, because now we know that we have got, property players who are sitting and waiting and are saying, Musah, what are the opportunities and how do we plug into them?
Yeah. Look, first, maybe before I even get in there, we're currently busy with some of the critical projects. So, because it links perfectly to the opportunities. We're driving one of the biggest developments in the city of Johannesburg currently, the Southern Farms development. Also there will be a lot of opportunities for the SMMEs. We do have a developer. However, we want to make sure that we transform. The issue of transformation for us as JPC and as a city is non-negotiable. And we don't want to talk about transformation on paper. We want to see transformation. So if I just try to unpack this mega development, it's about 27 billion development. So you can see in terms of value chain what we're talking about.
Sure.
And it's looking at about delivering just over 40,000 housing units. That's totally a new...
Sure, that's a new city.
A new city is all, because when you put so much housing, you need to look at what supports that type of housing. So in terms of our planning, and it's obviously... it's a big project. It's going to be run in phases. One of the things that we've put with the developers is that we want to put SMME hubs that are going to assist in ensuring that people partake. So we look at transformation locally, first within our affected wards, affected regions. But also we want to make sure that in the property sector, in the industry, the likes of Cybeep, that we are able to partner from a professional perspective, that developer is able to partner with a number of professionals to partake in that type of a development. So it is one of the opportunities that is out there, and will be further when we're starting to implement now, and we'll be communicating further in terms of how people can actually get into that platform.
Okay.
But from the normal property development transactions that we do, as I was just saying, yesterday we were awarding 8 developments, which is big for us as JPC. And obviously, one of the things that we really push is the issue of transformation. So the long spoken about Orlando Ekaya in Soweto is a reality, and it's happening.
Oh, my
goodness. So if you drive there around the towers, you're going to see some cranes, dust happening, and all sort of stuff. So it is quite exciting for us, and I think it's been a project that's been a pipeline, and we are moving there now to actually implement. One of the pockets there is actually going to be launched very soon. We're just waiting for a date. It's complete.
Okay.
And we are moving on others to ensure that we sort of complete the precinct, the vision of the Orlando Ekaya, what was known as Orlando Ekaya. And the last element of the Orlando Ekaya will be going out on tender, I think in about 2 weeks' time or so from now. So where it's a mixed-use development with a bit of commercial, because we've been releasing the pockets for residential, and we wanted to make sure that in terms of the flow, we have enough residential to support the commercial element that we'll actually put there. But we had an opportunity then to package it as one, but we thought it's not ideal. We need to we need to slice the cake and let a lot of people partake. So people should really look into, check our website on a regular basis, on a weekly basis. Normally we go out on Fridays.
Yeah.
And obviously we also go on newspapers, because in terms of the MFMA, we have to make it public. It's a public tender that everybody can actually look into. And I think people must pay particular attention in terms of what are the requirements, because a lot of what we see is people focus on the technical side without the governance side, if I can call it that. And unfortunately, we'll have such an amazing proposal, but if you don't tick those boxes in terms of the MFMA, just making sure that you are transforming your B levels, all those issues that we actually come out there, and you give us such an amazing concept or scheme that we can't even entertain at that point in time. So, but we normally have what we call the briefing sessions, where we overemphasize certain things so that people know exactly what to focus on before they get into wowing us, because we want you. It's a proposal.
Yeah,
that's what a lot of people spend time on, and then so we will be going out on a number of properties very soon. I know there's 2 petrol filling stations or petrol stations amongst the list that we are going out on. A few mixed-use development as well that we'll be taking out in this batch. I think in a week or 2, people should.
There's going to be a lot. So let's make it a date with JPC every Friday. Whatever you're doing on the web, just go on that website.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I love that you're touching on what you're receiving on the back end, of those proposals, because I think sometimes people are submitting proposals and then they get frustrated when the proposals don't, result in them getting an award, and probably sometimes then don't even go further in interrogating why was it, where did I fall short, right? So I think it's important maybe to have that education so that people understand that beyond wowing, you must also make sure that you tick on the compliance. And for a CyBIB, platform, we absolutely love the emphasis on transformation because that's very important, for us. And it seems that for you, then you look at transformation at that high level, awarding that developer, and everything that happens, further down, making sure that the communities are empowered. The city generally, we drive transformation through that.
Yeah, I think that's why also we look at organizations like CyBIB as strategic partners for us, because we've got a common goal in terms of transformation, and we seek to use this such platform so that we can reach out to the members of likes of CyBIB and so forth, but also on platforms that when we engage with different developers, we want to emphasize the issue of transformation. We want to ensure that when we empower you, you are able to empower the next person in a different, it could be a different level of empowerment, but we don't want to run a successful project that is not transformed, that is not empowering people, that's not creating meaningful jobs on the ground, that is not supporting local SMMEs in the area. Because we've actually seen that some of the challenges come from there. So one of the things that we look at is that there must be extensive stakeholder engagement when we actually drive those projects, or when we roll out the project on the ground. Yeah.
Okay, and I think before we wrap up, we know that with transformation, naturally, comes the challenge of finance, right?
Yes.
Access to finance, and probably some of the projects that you will have fought so hard to award to transformed entities, you may find that they are stuck because, there's the challenge of finance. What is your experience with that? And I know that we probably don't have like a clear solution on how do we navigate, this big issue.
Yeah. Look, in terms of our mandate, obviously we're not into the financing
Sure.
part of issues, but we play our role in ensuring that we engage the financiers or the funders
Okay.
in different platforms. You recall that when we were driving the first part of the inner city, we actually called the funders so that we can sort of give them confidence in terms of these projects before it even goes out to say, look, we as a city, we want to drive this project. This is how we want to drive it. Let's engage them. What are they looking at as well from their side?
Yeah.
So that we can see what can we incorporate to make it easy for whoever the successful bidder to get funding.
Sure.
And you're correct. Funding still remains a big constraint in terms of the SMMEs that we deal with. But it is upon us as a city and as JPC to continuously engage the funders and instill a confidence in terms of this, because most of the time they want to know that we've followed all the processes, we've ticked all the boxes.
Yeah.
Is this gonna happen? And obviously they will also worry sometimes about certain instabilities, if there are instabilities in the environment that we're in terms of politically. But the nice thing is that as entities, we are driving the vision or the strategy of the city, which is a long-term strategy. So I think we want to overly emphasize that we don't have a short-term strategy. So there could be changes, but in terms of how we want to roll out this project from a transformation perspective, from ensuring that we uplift certain areas where developments were not naturally going there, that will remain the drive, and how the city is going to partner with them to ensure that we assist. Because also I think as a city we need to make sure we play our role in fast-tracking the town planning issues, because there seems to be another frustration that a lot of developers face on the ground. So we have to play our role to make sure that the project is realized in time, and that we can give the rights that are actually envisaged in the development. Obviously, it must be as per the scheme that is operating at the time. So that is why we always say, when you do your proposal, when you wow us, look at the reality at the same time. So don't just put things that are not practical, pie in the sky. You want to build something that can't be done in that piece of land or whatever that is there. So it's important. I think it's important that all role players, because also funders want to know that this thing will be approved, it will actually hit the ground and there won't be issues. And I think their bidders as well have a certain responsibility to be responsible once they've got access to actually ensure that they drive the project. We've had few challenges where bidders push all the way to funding and something happens, the project is not there. Or in instances where we've awarded and the bidder just sort of banks our land and is waiting to pass it to someone else. So those are some of the issues that I think contractually now we've tightened up so that we can do proper contract management, and we give someone who really needs an opportunity instead of someone who wants to bank onto the transaction.
All right.
Yeah.
And I think finally then for that, listener who's thinking, how do I do business with JPC? And I know you've touched on the governance and compliance aspects when you're packaging that proposal over and above the wowing factor.
Yeah.
But for someone who's looking at doing business with JPC, what is the key most thing that they have to do before they even get to speak to you in a meeting?
Yeah, look, as I've mentioned earlier, we've got quite a vast portfolio in the city of Johannesburg. So normally people will also try and come and do what is an inquiry. So they will walk into our offices, drive past a piece of land. They want to know what's happening on that piece of land. Then we are able to assess that piece of land and see if it's not needed, because we are governed by the MFMA. If it's not needed, maybe as a clinic or as a road reserve or for whatever basic services. If it's not, then we can transact on it. We start a transaction, moving forward and get what you call a cancel resolution.
Okay.
We can really start talking about a transaction, a proper transaction from our side once we've got a cancel resolution. When I say transaction, to transact on it. But
Sure.
we start a transaction through getting approvals. It goes to our transaction board and so forth. So once we've obtained that approval, now we can go out on a public tender. So there's no other way. I must emphasize this.
Yeah.
There is no other way of transacting with JPC. We have to go out on public tender.
So I can't come, with a glass of water and just sit and say, I see there's that land. It has to go out on tender. And I think, we respect that.
Yeah. Look, I think it's just the sort of governance we're in, and one will understand why. And I think when we were asking earlier about the funders, we want to give them confidence that we've undergone a transparent process and looked at the proposals, and this was the best proposal that actually came out. So at least it gives confidence that Kulula didn't just come with a glass of water and say, I want that transaction.
Yeah.
And we didn't follow governance issues. And you imagine now we are funded and they say, hold on, that transaction is illegal or irregular. So it also helps on such issues, yeah.
Okay. Well, I know that there's so much more to unpack with JPC, and we will invite them again to have more conversations with them. Thank you for your time, Musah.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
So what we do, we have our last guest. They wrote a question for you.
Yeah.
When they write this question, they don't know who is the next guest. And you are going to also do the same, write a question for the next, guest, and we still don't know who that guest is going to be.
Yeah.
And they are speaking to leasing or buying. There's always this big, question. And maybe even when you're looking at, people now are leasing cars as opposed to buying cars. Property, even to stay, is it better to lease or buy, according to you? And I know we'll probably have different views.
Yeah. Look, my personal view is, so long as you've got long-term lease rights, I would say, for instance, if you look at our developments, we'll go out for 50 years.
Yeah.
And for me, that is good as you've got.
Yeah, no one is going to chase you out in 5 years.
Yeah, in 5 years. And if you package a good scheme, you should have made your return on investment. So I more lean into securing tenure in terms of leasing, so that I don't have huge capital outlays upfront as well. So my view is, I would say, I see in the times that we're in, the challenges that we face, maybe if you lease it, at least if you struggle, because sometimes you can struggle, how do you then get out of that transaction without other issues? But besides, when you own, there are other certain costs, hidden costs that you have to
that come with ownership.
It comes with ownership, issues of rates and taxes, all those issues that comes with this issue. So I would think that I guess depending also on the size of a player you are, but for people who are starting up and who are coming up, I think leasing makes sense. And you secure tenure to ensure that you make your return on investment.
Yeah.
And when you've got enough capital now and you think you want to own and you've seen the dog, that asset that you are dealing with, then maybe you can. But we've seen just in the few years, past years, especially when COVID hit us, a lot of owners really let go of their asset because, especially in the office space side, it was not as lucrative as it was before. So those are some of the issues. But those who are renting, they just have to find a way of getting out of a lease or downscale or re-engineer in terms of how you're working and move forward. So yeah, for me personally, I'll say yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I mean, I imagine that if you had 10 people in a room, you'd probably get different, responses.
Absolutely.
But even some of the big players, I think when Waterfall started,
Yeah.
it was on a lease. I don't know if that's still the case, but it was, on a lease.
Long-term list, yeah.
All right.
Seems to be the way now. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. But please do share. If you come across our podcast, share with your community so that they also have the opportunity to be educated and informed and inspired as you have been. Follow us, subscribe, and really just keep looking forward to the next conversation and the next, because we are talking all things property, and our goal is to be your friend along your property journey.